Hi, I'm Dale Leslie, and I'm going to use the word prolific to start today's program because our guest is indeed very prolific. Carol Dunitz has written a musical, and it has 20 songs that are her own creation. Carol, I want you to talk about it a little bit. I think it's quite remarkable.
Well, it's not my first venture into songwriting and musicals, but this time around, instead of being historical, I'm being political.
Oh.
And I have to tell you that if you'd asked me 5 years ago to talk about a political subject, I would have had no interest. It's only in the last, say, 3 years that I have, for the first time in my life, become very interested in politics and very interested in trying to be proactive to do something moving forward. And there are some people who write out envelopes for mailing, and there are some people who make phone calls, and I decided I should use my skill set and my talents, which come down to writing and writing music. So I've created 20 songs about all the issues that we all care about, and that's after doing lots of research. And very shortly, we'll be marketing it, and I expect I'll be going around the country performing 2020 the musical.
Now, does it take a certain angle? Are you coming from a side of the aisle, so to speak?
Well, most of us aren't right straight down the middle. I tend to be more liberal. I know you tend to be more conservative, but that doesn't mean we can't be friends.
Right, right.
It doesn't mean I won't let you interview me. So I would say the show has a more liberal viewpoint, although some of the songs go both ways.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's hear one. I'm anxious to see it and let the viewers see it as well.
Well, I think we're going to start out with perhaps the most provocative one, Dump the Trump in 2020.
Dump the Trump in 2020. We need a leader who knows wrong from right. Dump the Trump in 2020. Beat at the polls, impeach him or indict. Dump the Trump in 2020. Let's tell the joke, go out and fly a kite. A TV star seems sexy, but now we're just perplexed. See, it's taken too long to see the light. Dump the Trump in 2020. The time has come to halt his bigotry. Dump the Trump in 2020 and choose someone who has integrity. Dump the Trump in 2020. Let's keep this land we live in brave and free. A guy who has no scruples and always looks for loopholes. Face the fact.
Dump the Trump. My goodness, how original.
Well, it's sort of like Ditch the Mitch, isn't it?
Now, again, though, immediately you've alienated a certain percentage of the audience because of your criticism of the president. Does that worry you? Or?
It doesn't worry me at all. Let's face it. What's the population of the United States? Over 300 million. Well, even if we cut it straight down the middle, which I don't necessarily think is the case, there's still a potential audience of 150 million people there. And there's no way I'm going to reach that many people. So I think it's okay. I think the other interesting thing about the show is I expect there are people who are conservative who will see it. The interesting thing is it's not going to be, there's not going to be much of a script. And instead what I'm going to do is entertain responses from the audience, which I think will be fascinating because we'll get another read on how people feel and what people want.
This is after you take the show on the road, so to speak.
When I take the show on the road, what will happen is there'll be a couple of introductory remarks about a particular song, and then after the song, I'll field responses for a few minutes before we get into the next one, because with 20 songs, that's a full hour of music.
Right, right. Let's talk about songwriting for a second. I've always been amazed at people that are able to compose. Tell me about your 1, 2, 3 step process.
Well, at this stage in the game, I've been writing music and songs since I was 9 years old, so there is no process. It just sort of happens in my head. Music appears in my head. I think the interesting thing, they used to talk about Mozart, how music would just appear in his head. when I'm exposed to a thought or an idea or an environment, all of a sudden music appears. And then I get out my tape recorder and I sing it in so that I don't forget it, and then I can write it down later or play it into the sequencer. I think the interesting thing with writing songs for a political show is that you have to find a way to take the information and humanize it. And that's been the challenge here, to do a lot of research, to get a lot of information, but not deliver statistics and things that are going to put people to sleep. If I may, I'll give you an example. One of the songs is about global warming, which is, whether you want to call it climate change or global warming, we have some issues that must be dealt with. And the question was, how could I do this, and how could I make it compelling and draw people in? So the song I wrote is, the way it works is, it starts out with me singing about how when I was small, I used to sit on the front porch with my grandpa, and we'd look out over the wheat fields and the pristine blue sky. By the end of the song, I'm sitting on a different front porch with my grandkids, and I'm worrying about what I and other people will be passing on to them. So,
Very good. Well, let's sample another one of your compositions and performances, if we could.
Democrats forever, opportunity for all. Out to help our citizens and in for the long haul. Supporting what's right and fair and always on the ball. Democrats forever, that's our call. Democrats forever, authors of the new Green Deal. How can we turn away our children's future steal? Global warming is not something Congress can conceal. Democrats forever, charged with zeal.
The Democratic theme song.
yeah, well, I have to say, and this has something to do, again, with my viewpoint, because I wrote a rousing march for the Democrats. I wrote a square dance, hoedown, do-si-do for the Republicans. And, it has a very different feel about it, and I guess that does indicate my stance on what's going on in the Senate and with the president these days. But, that's okay. I don't mind. A friend of mine heard these songs the other day, and she said, "Carol, you're going to make a lot of people angry." And I said, well, I'm not doing this to win a personality contest. I'm doing this because I feel so passionate about it, and I feel that we need to get the message out to those people. In the Ann Arbor, we don't even have a newspaper anymore. So that we need to find ways to get the message out so that people will get involved, whether they're liberals or Republicans. It doesn't, the idea is to get them involved and to hopefully spearhead action.
Well, I'm for Democrats forever, but it's the lowercase d that I would use. Well, we got to hear the Republican
Okay, all right.
I mean, my goodness.
I hope you won't walk out when after it.
Greet the partner you'll have along the way. Tell them no abortion, on that you won't sway. Circle right, keep the Democrats at bay. Health care for everyone is something you can't take. Swing your partner to the right. Never break. Do-si-do to broadcast news that's hot, but fake. Face in, face out. Two-faced if need be. Wrong way grand is the right way you see. Step through your partner. Promenade, take no knee. Same-sex partner, you'll be under attack. Divide and separate, that's the caller's quack. Directions to labor, no choice. You turn back. Yeehaw! It's all about the money.
Hee-haw.
Yeah, that was me too.
Oh.
On a different track. In these videos that we're showing, basically what I did was take the audio and then do a quick in-studio kind of showing people what it's like to record the vocals. And you have headphones on, you hear the music, and then you sing along.
Now, do you have to edit the script to go with the music, or are you
The
able
lyrics?
Yeah.
Well, lyrics, that's all written and it's good to go. Sometimes when you sing it, you realize that there's an additional beat or one beat less, and then you make modifications.
Okay. But you're not into changing your music once you've composed it.
Oh, well, I don't think there's any reason to. I think that my melodies are very catchy, and you know, if you got something going and people are remembering them, well,
Sure.
then why change them?
Well, let's reiterate for people that might be just tuning in, just repeat a brief description of how these songs are going to be incorporated.
Well, my thought was this, Dale. In order to get the word out, I wanted to do something that was fun and interesting and provocative. And as opposed to some of the other musicals that I have performed or toured in, the idea is not to necessarily book this in theaters, although it could be. The idea is to approach liberal-leaning organizations and give them a vehicle to use for fundraisers. So that's 2020 the musical.
Okay, very good. Well, you've started in the right town, that's for sure, to gain a little momentum.
Well, I hope so. There's certainly lots of organizations and lots of meetings that are happening on a weekly basis. But I think this is true all over the country. Although, of course, depending on what region or what state, they're leaning in one direction or another.
And when will this program be available? I mean, for...
I'm ready to book now. I'm
you?
actually ready to perform sometime in July.
Oh, very good.
So, but you know, everything, I couldn't start marketing before, the finishing mixing is being done right now. And then it's all full steam ahead.
Oh, my goodness.
The 20 songs, what I did was I tried to figure out what issues would be interesting to talk about. I mentioned global warming, reproductive rights, tax reform, criminal justice reform. You've got a list there, I think, of all the different topics. So there are 19 political topics and one novelty song. And the novelty song is a song that I wrote, earlier, I don't know, 10, 12 months ago. It's a happy birthday baby song, and I thought it would be an opportunity to reach out in the audience and see, is anybody having a birthday today? And it would be just an opportunity to have a break from a show that could get very intense.
Well, everyone has a birthday regardless of their political stance.
Yes. Well, that's not one of my sample songs.
Well, let's hear another one. Let's hear another one. This one is called Stack the Deck.
You don't need to study art while in school to learn how to draw a crooked line. Any cartographer drafting a map can show you gerrymandering that's fine. When in power, take the bull by the horns, partisan your chart to make a survey. Use big words to divert and distract. They'll never see that you got things your way. Pick a card, any card you want. Take an ace, I've more up my sleeve. We all know just how the party will end. Stack the deck, we're poised to
That one is somewhat mysterious to me. Tell me what Stack the Deck is about.
Well, it has to do with gerrymandering, for one. Taking voters off the rolls so they can't vote. So it has to do with different voting issues.
Okay. And what about some of the others? What's the history?
I'll tell you one that's I think kind of fun, and something that could be played to children, or I know your family is very musical, your kids and your grandkids. I did a lot of research about homophobia, and I thought, well, how am I going to approach this? And just like the global warming thing, I was trying to figure out what would be a unique way to approach this. And I decided a way that would be non-threatening, whether you were liberal or conservative, would be to personify the instruments in the orchestra. So what I've done is the music for this song is a round, so it never stops. It just keeps on going, kind of like 99 bottles of beer on the wall. And what happens is, in the first round, the trumpet talks about why he can't stand the trombone. And in the second round, the trombone talks about why he can't stand the flute. And each one of them, they talk about their physical attributes. They talk about what they're made of. They talk about what kind of sounds they make. And each one is in essence discriminating against the one they're talking about. And in the end, instead of it being one talking about another, it's the group of them singing or playing together, and what they discover is that alone they sound very lovely, but it's hands down better when they play together. And
when they cooperate with each other.
Exactly. And so I was trying to make a point. It could be about homophobia, it could be about racism, it could be about any situation where people discriminate against each other, but it becomes non-threatening because I've simply personified the instruments. Great way to deal not just with adults but with children.
Right, right. What about gun control? What kind of a song can you write about gun control?
What can you? Well, let's see. I think what I did was, I don't think personally that the issue is whether or not there are guns, because with Second Amendment rights, we're not going to get rid of guns. I think we have to accept, yes, there are guns. The issue becomes, are we going to have regulation? Do people have to take an exam? Do people have to have a license? I think these are reasonable things. Does the general public need assault weapons, which are freely sold? I don't think so. I think that, so what I did was deal with all these issues, and actually that song is the only rap song in the show.
Oh my gosh.
So I created this beat, probably not as good a beat as some of the hip hop artists out there, and the song is called "Let's Take Out the NRA." Although I think they've been taking themselves out lately.
I hope you don't insinuate the way to take the NRA out, at least in a violent nature.
Of course not. Of course not.
What about? I noticed you have a song about a woman president.
Oh, that was fun. That was fun to write, and it's very peppy, and I talk about all the slurs that are made against women and why they shouldn't be able to run a country. Although there have obviously been women in Germany and in Israel and in England who have had the top position. So clearly women can, but in the song I deal with, is it possible that because they go through menopause they can't? Is it possible because they're going to be too embarrassed to assert themselves they can't? And so it's kind of playful in a sense, but it makes the point. And like I said, all along the way with all of them, they're done to melodies that you take with you.
Now, what other types of melody? You have a square dance number. You have a march.
I have a couple of marches.
Of marches. A rap.
Well, I have a song about the border wall, which is a tango. And I thought, we're dealing with the United States and Mexico. I wanted to do something Latin. And in that song, I talk about not just the wall and the perceptions here, but then I talk about walls like the Great Wall of China and the walls around the papal residence. But of course, it gets twisted just slightly in terms of the presentation. And it's fun. It keeps it interesting. It is a tango, yes. Da 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 da.
Gee, you sound like you know what you're doing.
Well, at least I try to make it appear that way.
Well, now tell the audience about this process that started and has now concluded of putting all this together. How much time has been required?
That's hard to say, and some shows take more time than others. I think if you're going to have something really good, you have to invest the time in research. and become very familiar with the topic. Once you do that, then you can write lyrics. You know, there are some teams where one person writes the music and one writes the lyrics, where one comes first and the other comes second, or vice versa. But with me, what happens is usually it all kind of starts all at the same time. Now, all the lyrics for an entire song don't come out, but typically the first few sentences or first few lyrics get me started. And then I can work on the remainder of the words. I have to admit, I like clever rhymes. And in one of the songs that you heard, there was the reference to a man who has no scruples and is always looking for loopholes. So anyway, I thought that was kind of a fun rhyme. I look for fun rhymes, and I used to have a rhyming dictionary. A lot of people wouldn't admit that, but nothing wrong with that, because even when you see the words, you think, what might I do with that word? What word can I use that you wouldn't usually think of here, but in a creative way? Nowadays, you can go on the internet and say, I want a word that rhymes with, and there are a number of sites, and you just pick which one, and you go through them.
Wow.
And I'll do that, and I'll figure out which one of these words potentially could I use.
Yeah.
And then I brainstorm to think about how, in what context it would work. And then you figure it out.
So again, how much time has elapsed from when you started this project to now?
Dale, I'm not going to answer that question.
Oh, you're not, okay.
That's why I avoided it.
Okay.
I think the reality is time is a matter of how much time you invest, how easily it comes to you, how high you set the bar. Exactly. So I have felt like I was under the gun, excuse me for using that expression, because there is a limited window for this show. And I see it as being from now until the election in November of 2020.
Okay.
So there was pressure to get this done as quickly as possible and get it out there.
Right.
With other shows, there may not be so much pressure. With the historical shows like Bernhardt on Broadway or Mrs. President Lincoln or Oh Victoria, I actually have two other shows which are taking a back seat right now that I have fully researched and not written, that are historical also. But to me, this was more important.
Good, good. Well, let's look at one more here that we have.
Can a woman take the reins, have the know-how, show her brains, weather all the grief and strains, she'll lead us on our way? Does she have leadership traits to guide us through difficult straits? Strike back when crisis dictates, she'll lead us on our way. The Chancellor of Germany, Times Person of the Year, Ms. Merkel as G7 chief, she towers in her sphere. Can a female assume power, be a hero of the hour, find a fix when things turn sour, she'll lead us on our way?
These, all these samples, these are like little, about possibly 1/3 of a
Right.
whole song to give people a taste.
Right. Well, the one on women, I have no problem endorsing, because I was part of a family business, and my mother, bless her heart, she outdistanced anyone else in the family as far as work and investment was concerned. So I think women do the work of the world. I really believe that, and we're due to have a female president. I really feel that way.
Well, I hope that it happens soon, perhaps soon, and in our lifetimes.
Good, good. Now, what would be a type of tour that you would go on, and have you gone on with your programs?
Well, with Bernhardt on Broadway, I did a tour around the country. I performed at theaters, a couple of libraries. I even did a couple of people hired me to come perform in their home and do the show and had a party. So, but this show is a little different. I mean, people could use it in their home, But like I said, I see it more as being used for fundraising purposes. On the other hand, today, just on a fluke, I went on the internet and I typed in Capitol Steps. You've seen the Capitol
Yes,
Steps perform?
yes.
Now, those performances are typically more humorous. My show is serious with bits of humor and lots of humanity. I thought to myself, well, in addition to contacting organizations like Indivisible and the Democratic Party and who knows, I've got lists that I put together, it might be interesting to potentially look at the places Capitol Steps has performed and contact those venues. Maybe they're interested in some other political things.
Sure.
And I think when you market, and I ran an ad agency for 15 years, you need, particularly in today's world, you need to think outside of the box. You need to, what to do is not going to be spoon-fed to you. You need to think about it and think creatively to figure out who you might approach. In the past, I've done a lot of direct mail and ads in publications and so forth. This time around, I'm going to make it more personal. I want to contact someone, talk with someone personally, so I can then follow up with a package.
Good. I think you have a good idea there. How about campus audiences? Would students be interested in this?
I think students would be. I think they certainly would be interested in the topic. As I said, there's one rap song. I think the songs, in terms of their styles, cover many decades. And that's just because I wanted to keep it fun and upbeat.
Sure.
I think a lot of the student population, and of course we're particularly focused on the ones who will be 21 and able to vote by the time of the election, could potentially find an interest. I think in terms of marketing, though, you have to figure out where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. And you don't want to expend a lot of energy in a situation where maybe you're not going to get as much response.
Right. Well, we have just a short time left. How can people get in touch with you?
I think they're going to put up my contact information on the credits.
Good.
cdunitz@gmail.com. You can go to www.2020 the musical, and there'll be a way to reach me through that as well. And I look forward to being approached. And I certainly have been approached by people in audiences or people who've seen things that I have on the internet. So that's always fun.
Well, I used the word prolific, and I mean that's the case. You have done a marvelous job of putting words and music together, and it certainly is a topic that's going to be up for discussion for certainly the short term and possibly the long term. So I congratulate you on your work, and we appreciate having you with us.
It's been great fun, and thank you so much.
Thank you.